Hi, this is Cal and welcome to the fourth video in the series of videos about making of DROD Touch, a hold I made for DROD. It's in its name, and if you don't know DROD, everything probably makes no sense. Anyway, this is about level design. So, in previous videos we have established that one of the driving ideas behind this hold was that it's going to be like a mobile version of DROD. It's not actually a mobile version of DROD, it's like super extra simplified version of maybe super extra simplified DROD, but the idea was that, to slightly imitate the design principles of mobile games design. Yes. Right, so before I had the help of Kieran with making cool puzzles, the idea I had for this hold was to have very small puzzles which each required or introduced a single concept, followed by some puzzles which combine those concepts. Kinda like think about the ideas generator and how there are interactions there. So like every room introduced a single interaction. And for the most part, it worked fine. Most of the puzzles, I wasn't very happy with the puzzles I had back then. I don't have, as I said, I don't have the old version of the hold, so I can't show you the puzzles. Many of them some of them were, left here. Like this was the first real Ryokulai puzzle, and this was a puzzle which used advanced movement, another advanced movement puzzle. This is Kieran's work, another advanced movement puzzle. And as you can see, this is very hard to read puzzle introducing pressure plates. And this is a cool pressure plate puzzle I very much like. So that was the goal, to have simple puzzles which did very little, and you can play through them in a couple of minutes, or get stuck and get back on them later and try to get them in a couple of minutes. But then Kieran came and the complexity slightly exploded with rooms like this one. I think this is a huge showstopper for many players, or this one, which is also very clever. Also originally there was more space here. This was like this. Whoops. This was like this, and if you didn't catch the proper solution immediately, this one, you get to a situation where you have the... Wait, what am I doing? So you would get into a situation like this, where it's pretty much impossible to get the Rakulas back on track, and we tried... Kieran had some ideas to completely revamp this room, but then I had the idea, just move the wall and have two options. Either you go out with the rock golem, or you leave out and only one of those works. So yeah, the complexity exploded, or like this room, which I wasn't able to solve myself, and before this version there were like two unintended solutions, or this room, which is super difficult. So yeah, the complexity was increased, or like this puzzle, which is probably the hardest puzzle. This one isn't that hard. You can, if you use pen and paper, you can quickly decide, okay, so I need two read keys, so one of them is fake. You can count how many keys you have and how many keys you need to get everything, and you'll quickly see that you probably can't get one of the red keys here. So you need to get one out here and one here, then count the greens. Then you realize you have to open all of the black doors. So, it's if you use pen and paper or paint, this is a very reasonable room. If you try to do it in your head, it's doable but difficult. So the design principles. So it's very difficult to make new puzzles in a system that you have just, got to know. Like when you create so making puzzles for this is a bit like you never played DROD, and then you played the first 2-3 floors of King Dagon's dungeon, and then you try to make your own hold. This is how it feels. You know, you barely understand any interactions. Then you have to understand parity, and it's even better if you understand it instinctively, because then it's easier to make puzzles. And you know, the element selection is very small. You have doors that you can open to change parity indefinitely. You have doors you can open only once if you have key to change parity. You have trapdoors which don't change parity and can create one-directional pathways with doors, and single use also. You have 3 enemies, each, you know, 2 of them follow you, 1 of them just moves back and forth. And you have hot tiles, and that's it, really. Not very much. The rules are also made to be more deterministic, hopefully more deterministic than DROD, so okay, maybe deterministic is not the correct word, but I know that some people have problem with vertical preference, and with no diagonal movement, the way the roaches work is probably the most obvious one, but it isn't as much, you know, it doesn't have as much of a puzzle potential as you could have. So it was a challenge. Like, you know, for that reason, most of the puzzles made in the later levels are by Kieran. This is by Kieran. This is by Kieran. This is mine. This is Kieran's. Here we have my puzzle, my Kieran's, my Kieran's. And in bonus world we have my puzzle, Kieran, my. And in Postmaster it's about half mine, half his, then the special elements which are added later. And, you know, I'm not the greatest architect. Fortunately, Kieran is pretty good, so thanks to him, we have salvaged this project to create not only an interesting experience on its own, but also an experience that can be challenging. But at some point, during the development, we had puzzles for almost 6 worlds. We had, so I knew already that we wanted to have 6 puzzles per world, and we had 32 puzzles, I think. The problem was that some of them were these puzzles, and I wasn't exactly happy, and I had this. On one hand, I was trying to increase the scope, and it felt like feature creep, and on the other hand, I didn't want to increase the scope, so. And what I wanted actually was to have 8 worlds, sorry, it was supposed to be 8 worlds. So it would be 8 times 6 is 48 puzzles, yeah, quite a lot. So 30, no, we had like 38 puzzles made. So at some point I decided, okay, you know what, I will make more elements. And we will only use those elements for those bonus world. This 24 new worlds 24 new levels that unlock after you complete the game. And thus the elements were introduced. The mirrors were added, which are just a way to block your movement. Block enemies and change parity. And the blobs were added, which move every other turn. And the, what was its name? I can remember, it's Craven, yeah, Craven, which I believe means someone who is afraid. There was a word for that. Someone who is easily afraid. That's Craven. But, you know, ultimately Kieran was like out of ideas, and I think I didn't want to use him too much, like he already helped me a lot and I didn't want to impose on him too much, so I just decided, okay, you know what, you were right previously, we don't need this many worlds, just let's cut content. We removed, no, I had the final say, so I removed a lot of the rooms, some of the ones were left here. This is a room that was left just for the sake of being a commentary on level design. Then I made these 4 puzzles to showcase those, you know, special elements that were added but never used, and that's how it went. And also, I had this. So One of the inspirations for this game was a mobile game called Rust Bucket. It's by Nitro. If you don't play many mobile games or just play some of them and are very like me, you don't like most of them, then Nitro is a company you want to look at. You know, keep an eye on what they make, because a lot of their games are actually really good games, and they're also good mobile games. Their monetization is generally really fair. They have ads, but for every game you can buy, disable the ads for... The games are free, and you can buy ad-free version for quite the same amount of money. If you don't want to buy it, the ads are spaced pretty well. In some games you can also buy special currency that's used only for changing how your character looks, so generally no content is ever blocked behind money wall, so that's good. And Rust Bucket is essentially a turn-based, grid-based game which works exactly like DROD Touch. So every time you move, everything else moves. You can't wait, and you have to kill enemies. But there are more elements, and one thing in that is that at some point the game introduces different weapons. And while I was originally 2 years ago or 4 years ago making this hold and hit a wall and wasn't able to make any new puzzle, I have decided, let's implement new weapons. And actually I have been thinking about it earlier because the inventory has a lot of space, but in the end it didn't work out, probably for the better, because they need to just be a copy of Rust Bucket, and the way it is, we have something more interesting. So I hugely recommend you to play Rust Bucket if you want to play it on Android or iOS. It's also available online in web, but it uses Flash, and I'm not even sure it's possible to play the game anymore on their site, so probably better to go with the mobile version. And I think that's it about level design, really. I could make another video with my closing thoughts, but there isn't really anything else to say, I think. I think I said everything. Let me look just one more time through the scripts. So we have auto wake, yeah, script that automatically wakes, thing that's not used anymore, concrete token hinges. Yeah. So, this was making of DROD Touch. Thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed these 4 short videos. I hope you have enjoyed the hold. Stay tuned for another thing I'm making. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but let's just end it with this.